So, John and Daniel, we are halfway through 2026, and just ignore the video feeds for a second. Uh, we have had already one hell of a year for games. Uh, we've just finished Star Fox, if none of you all can tell here on YouTube. And but that's just one game out of many that have released in 2026 that we have had an amazing time with. I'm super happy that we've already had for what in any other year would be considered an incredible year by this point. Uh, but there's a ton of games to talk about, and I know all of us are kind of sitting with certain games as our favorite of 2026. John, has this stood out to you as like a standout year for games so far?
You know, in the moment, just exploring the year, experiencing the year, I felt like there were lots of fantastic games, and there have been. But choosing just a few definitive favorites has actually proved a little bit difficult. I think that's because there's been a lot of great remakes and re-releases, but actual like game of the year material is a little bit harder for me to boil down. And I've got a couple of picks, and Daniel actually he shouted out my overall pick, but there's more out there. But I think the back half of the year is where it's really gonna shape in. Like this is truly game of the year material. But yeah, thus far it's been a good year.
Yeah, an excellent one, and Starwolf and slash or Daniel. What is how are you feeling about 2026 so far?
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of games out right now, halfway through the year, but I can't imagine like there's any of the ones right now that I say will be my game of the year, especially when you kind of can anticipate what we're going to see for the latter half.
Exactly.
And yeah, there's definitely some that are up there. There's some that we'll be talking about when we do our proper like game of the year discussions that we'll bring up today. But yeah, honestly, of the ones that I have in mind right now, like I don't imagine those will be like the forefront of my mind when we do discuss like the complete 2026 roster of games of the year.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a weird situation because this is obviously a halfway point check-in, and yet I don't anticipate what I choose here is going to end up holding throughout the rest of the year, which is a shame because I think we've all picked pretty fantastic games, like games that just kind of amaze and delight. But yet we already know kind of what's coming, and we'll push that off for later in the discussion because I do want to talk about the games that we're looking forward to in the second half that we think could dethrone our current picks. But Daniel, I want to actually start this off with you. Here at the end of June, where do you feel like you're at with your current selection for game of the year?
Oh man. Well, you both chose a game that I wanted to pick. So I have to pick something else. And of the ones we have thus far this year, I guess the one that stuck with me the most would be Mina the Hollower. And we talked about that a bit already on the win at some points. But Mina the Hollower is a game that I think, Yacht Club Games has done so much with Shovel Knight for so long. We were waiting and waiting to see what else they were gonna try and accomplish with what they've learned, and they went for like a very Souls-like game that has a very Game Boy aesthetic to it. And I'm just like, how are these two very different things going to work together? And they work very well together. I think that Mina displays so much of what people love in a Souls-like in such a small little package, and in a good way. Like there is so much in that game. There's so much packed in every little corner and corridor. You can find so many little secrets. I was still finding secrets even after booting up the game again to see what New Game Plus is like. There's so much to discover, and I think that the vibe it has is also very well done. I'm glad that they took more time to polish this game, or else I wouldn't even be able to bring it up because it was originally supposed to be a Halloween release last year.
Yeah, it seemed troubled by all means, and then they just launched with this spectacular feat. And it's refreshing because like last year, the big indie games were both sequels and quite like following in the line of what their predecessor was doing. They weren't like exceptionally different in tone, whereas Mina was just something entirely new. And after how much Shovel Knight we had, You know, we had a lot of Shovel Knight campaigns, a lot of Shovel Knight cameos. It was just really nice for them to do something completely original, and they stuck the landing with it.
You know, I wasn't actually super keen on Mina when I first got to play it. I played the demo and I just kind of came away thinking that it was another game that I'd just put in the backlog and pick up when I had the time. However, Yacht Club graciously gave several of us access to play the game early, so I was among the group of us that were playing it before release. And I ended up just kind of tearing through the game and not being able to put it down. I'm not usually like a Souls-like person. That's not my genre usually, but something about the idea that you had to get to where you died and regain your currency and then survive whatever it was that had killed you before really got its hooks into me, because that's not something that you usually see in like 8 and 16-bit inspired games. Those are usually just kind of naturally super hard, and they don't have additional mechanics on top of that to incentivize you to go further than you did before. And I ended up just really enjoying it there. It kind of sold me on that aspect of the Souls genre. So yeah, I would say this was kind of unexpectedly just a tremendously fun game for me. I don't know that I want to go back and play it again right now, but it's definitely not a game I'd be opposed to doing another run of in the future at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the most fun things about this was just discussing it with other people, because even with you and Brandon, we talked about the different weapons we used during our runs. We talked about like the different routes. We did very different routes and things that we encountered. I encountered like that one very freaky like actual jump scare. There's like a full screen face that just jumps at you if you're in the dark and something approaches you that you guys didn't encounter. Like, it's just that fun thing of, you know, going on your own adventure, finding these things that nobody else has seen, and just being able to talk about it. And it's a different experience with everybody because of how open-ended it was. It felt a little too open-ended in some cases, but overall, I think the experience was still very much worth, like, you know, just kind of getting lost and discovering everything in the moments.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, because I did feel like there were points at which, because I ignored the fact that there was hints on where to go in the newspaper. I just kind of decided to go my own way and find things, and I think I made the game significantly more difficult for myself. But I know that everyone I knew that played that game, you know, there was inevitably a question of like, hey, how do I get to this area? How do I end up in this, you know, critical story juncture? And I feel like they maybe could have done a bit better with guiding people towards the important story moments that you have to complete. Like, you know, I don't think it like Bone Beach in particular was one that people found very difficult to find for some reason. I helped Brandon find it, and I helped a few media people find it. So I think there probably could have been just a little bit more of like, here's how you get here. But I also understand that, you know, if you start Elden Ring or something like that, it's not going to be like, hey, here's how you get to the boss. You're just expected to dig in and take your time and find it. And I do think that that's kind of a media-centric complaint, right? Like, oh, I need to find this more quickly, because most players are just going to, you know, explore until they find where they need to go. But when you're in our line of work, you're often against time constraints. So I get it. And I wouldn't count it as a flaw in the game, but I do think a lot of players may find themselves confused. And I do think a certain type of player may just give up and be like, I don't know how to get there. I've got other things I can play. I'm going to move on. But that doesn't, at least in my mind, detract from the quality of the game. I think it's utterly fantastic. And it's a shame, because I think, like all of our selections, there's a very good chance that it doesn't get mentioned in Game of the Year awards later this year.
Yeah, there's been a couple of games this year which I think have been absolutely fantastic. But what actually is Game of the Year material? That's another big problem that I face. And I find like iterative games, I struggle to give that aspect to. Like, even if they're fantastic, if it's just something that is more of what I've had before, I don't think that's enough. So I've been considering like Resident Evil Requiem, which I think is a fantastic game, but it is very much like Resident Evil 2 mixed with Resident Evil 7. That's kind of everything it is. With like a little bit of the Resident Evil 4 remake. It's fantastic, but it's not like a brand new experience that you couldn't find anywhere else. Like we've been on this kind of tone before. So yeah, a lot of games like that I don't think really make it to the end of the Game of the Year discussions. Maybe it will, but in my eyes, I don't think it really earns that.
I agree with you. I feel like there's an interesting kind of issue at play with Game of the Year. One, depending on who you talk to, the requirements are increasingly nebulous, right? For me, I value original experiences, things that don't feel like they've been done before. Games that kind of move the medium in some direction or another. And I feel like that's something that is exceptionally hard to quantify. Like what is a new experience? Because everything borrows from something else. But I agree, like Resident Evil Requiem, probably one of my favorite games this year. Absolutely loved it. Brought me back to the franchise as a fan for the first time since probably 5. I think 5 is where I fell off. And, like it's hard to say, like 4 kept me on. 5 might be the one that pushed me off. But 9 brought me back. It's everything that I wanted in a Resident Evil game. It combines like the horror and the action elements of that franchise that kind of has had a bit of an identity crisis for a while, and kind of merges those two divergent aspects of it into one game that just is wonderful. But on the same token, John, like you said, it is still Resident Evil. It's still something that we've seen and done, gameplay that has existed before. It's not anything that is particularly new. And I don't think that alone is like a qualifier for Game of the Year, because you can have games that do new things that just don't land. But I do think it's a huge part of the novelty of games, like finding something that does something new and interesting. And I think this is probably a great segue into my pick. Because where I'm at with Game of the Year for 2026 right now is my favorite game is Pragmata. And it is probably the only game I can think of this year that is doing something that feels brand new and very interesting. And Daniel, I know you also feel very strongly about this game. It's more than just the relationship dynamic between Hugh and Diana. As a dad, that certainly gets me right in the feels. John, you have a little girl at home too. I'm sure that it stirs some emotion in you to protect a little robot girl on the moon.
Yeah, 100%.
But for me, it's the core gameplay loop, the puzzle third-person shooting aspect that I think is really special here. I can't think of any other game that does anything remotely like this, and the result is moment-to-moment gameplay that is thrilling and engaging and deeply interesting, and also very strategic for a third-person shooter.
Yeah. It brings you back to like an era of games where like the general game feel is kind of similar to something like Vanquish, but there's a layer with all the puzzle dynamics which just sets it apart. So it brings you back to an era of like sort of like 360 time, where there's just this sort of pure kind of mechanical action, but then there's just this brand new token on top of that, and it's just exceptional. And it just evolves and evolves and evolves as well. I remember like the first time trying it out, I thought, oh, this is really cool, but it's probably going to get a bit dull after a while. But it does find ways to just continuously evolve, and it truly is something very, very special.
Yeah, when I played this, I thought it had a very like PS2 era kind of feel to it, but just in a modern day. And the way that you narratively and contextually, like within the gameplay itself, that these two characters need each other to survive. Like you have Hugh in the very beginning. Hugh is trying to fight off the first enemies that you're fighting, but can't really do much. But then Diana hacks into them, and immediately you're introduced to how they're needed to cooperate with one another. So you're doing all of the hacking with the face buttons. You're doing the shooting with the triggers, and they complement each other very well. You're trying to think with two brains at the same time. Yeah. And it's always fun to like have a gameplay loop where you're trying to do you're exploring, you're trying to figure out these puzzles, you're also fighting these different enemies in the same way. You're very slow, like because you're in a big spacesuit, so you're not very mobile. You have like a little dash boost to get out of the way, but you rely on so many different like modules that Diana can apply to slow down your enemies, to stun them, have them attack each other. And there's just a lot of options. I'm surprised how many options there were as you kept unlocking more and more going through the game. And I just loved finding little toys to unlock for Diana in her room back at base. It was just very wholesome to see the characters interacting with one another when you're back there, and just kind of unlocking things as you go along.
Mm-hmm. It's also just really nice that we're in this time where you can take a game that isn't that long and just have it be everything it is. It doesn't need anything shoehorned in. And it's also incredibly replayable. Like in the same way that a lot of Resident Evils are, like there's lots of just reasons to revisit and come back. It's one of those games that you can master. Yeah, it's so cool that Capcom are just able to be on this roll where they can put out, like Game of the Year nominee after Game of the Year nominee, and they've been doing it time and time again this year. They're not even done yet. They've still got like Onimusha coming up.
Which is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting time because Resident Evil Requiem, even though we both just said how much we love it, though it isn't Game of the Year nominee for either of us, I would not begrudge anybody nominating that. I think it's a wonderful game. It's just Pragmata kind of edges it out for me ever so slightly because it's there's also just kind of, and I don't think you need to be a dad to kind of get that emotional thread that's very present in that game. It's really well written. It's really, the relationship between Hugh and Diana is beautiful. Like it becomes like a father-daughter relationship over a very short comparative runtime, right? Like and it makes sense. Like if you're protecting ostensibly a little girl from all these dangers, and she's also helping Hugh out as much as he's helping her, like you're going to build a bond with that person, even if it is, kind of a short experience that you spend together saving each other's lives constantly. I just feel like Capcom did something really incredible here. But the thing that I think impresses me the most is the restraint that they used. Like, it is a very tightly designed game. It understands its concept. It doesn't veer from it or stray from it. It doesn't need a bunch of mini games or a bunch of padding to hit some arbitrary runtime number. Instead, very similarly to Requiem, it's a very tightly designed experience that understands what it's about and doesn't overstay its welcome. And that makes it something that's very replayable. I have played through it now on PS5, Switch 2, and PC, and I've done 2 runs on PS5. So similarly to Star Fox, a game that we are currently using in a very different capacity, it's a game that I can pick up and play through over and over again and really just enjoy my time with it. Like, of the games that I've played this year, Pragmata, at least for now, is the one that I could see returning to in a couple years and just playing through all over again and reliving my memories with.
It's also one of the few games in this industry, and I'm sure there will be more Pragmata, but it's one of those games where I don't need more. I don't need Pragmata 2, Pragmata 3, Pragmata 4. I'm sure there will be at some point, but it just stands alone. It stands on its own so well. It doesn't feel like it needs more and more and more because the concepts of what it achieved were done really well. They explored the gimmicks they had to a really great degree, and it's so rare where like that you finish a game and you're like, okay, what more can they do in the sequel? And yeah, I thought it was just really nicely kept in its own box.
Mm-hmm. This is also a game that I think this is the game that started to make me realize just how much the Switch 2 is capable of. Because I played this only on Switch 2. And sure, the resolution obviously has a dip in some places. Like you have that fuzzy hair that is just happening with a lot of Switch 2 versions of games that you see being released. But it's an amazing display for what the console's capable of, and I think more people really started to realize what the Switch 2 can do within this year of releases for games like Pragmata.
Yeah, for sure. This is the year where we've really started to stretch the legs of this system, isn't it? People were recently shocked by Devil May Cry 5, which is a PS4 game, but it's running at like 90 frames per second, whereas PS4 was like 40, 50 a lot of the time.
Yeah, the Switch 2 continues to impress me throughout 2026. I know that, Game of the Year is not exclusive to Switch 2, although the three of us are probably playing that more than anything else right now. I also picked up Devil May Cry 5 after seeing your video, John, and I was just blown away by how good it looks. It's absolutely bonkers how nice that looks on Switch 2. I would argue that the only differences are really stylistic choices, right? Like, it's a little brighter on Switch 2 than it is on PS4, but that just comes down to seemingly Capcom making a decision that they want the game to punch up a little bit. But 90 FPS is ridiculous. That's awesome. So you love to see it, but we're in an era where we're getting more and more day and date releases. Like a lot of these Game of the Year contenders are releasing on the same time at Switch 2, with one very notable exception.
Yeah.
But Onimusha we just talked about, that's coming to Switch 2 as well. And so it's a really exciting time to have this. But John, you mentioned boxes earlier, and I have a feeling that your Game of the Year nominee has something to do with boxes.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying earlier about how being iterative, from my view, is difficult to give you a Game of the Year contender. And Pokemon Poptopia is iterative. It's Dragon Quest Builders 3. It's just building off what Dragon Quest Builders did already. But I think it manages to have its own identity while doing that, though. And a big part of that is there's no combat in this game. So in Builders, you are going back and forth between, your little hub area where you're building everything and the wilderness where you're beating up enemies to take their materials and all that. That's not really there in Poptopia. Instead, it's just mostly about living with all the Pokemon around you. So even though the gameplay of placing blocks and building everything is pretty much the exact same, the whole Pokemon angle does evolve it into something very different. And the tone, the atmosphere, the sense of just progressing through each area, it was really fresh. And it's cool how much it caught on as well. Like, you're getting people who don't usually play games got really into Poptopia. My wife got really into it. I've seen relatives get really into it. Like social media outside of the usual gaming bubbles were really into it. And it's such a strange concept as well, like taking a Ditto and just giving them these strange little moves. But it's just become something that really is one of the more memorable experiences I've had this year. And a great thing that we did as well is back when we did that shared GVG server, where basically anyone could come in and make their own level, that just showed like how powerful of a tool this is as well. Like everyone can just contribute and put their own ideas in. It's so imaginative, and it's just this canvas for creativity. So this really hit hard with me, and it's something I still revisit now. I was waiting for those new levels to come out.
Absolutely. Poptopia was an interesting one for me because I remember sitting in a preview event for it, and I was sitting with someone who did not get it, like did not like it at all. Mm-hmm. And I remember being a bit confounded by that, thinking this is very clearly going to be something big. It's Dragon Quest Builders 3, like you said, but running at a flawless 60 frames per second, which is if you've ever played Dragon Quest Builders, particularly on Switch, is no mean feat. That is deeply impressive. And the more I built up my regions in Poptopia, the more I wanted to continue. Like I remember, my wife built an underground subway system. Like she went crazy with this game. And while I never quite reached those levels, I found more fun in this than I did in either Dragon Quest Builders game, despite the fact that technically, mechanically, it had less to offer.
Mm. Yeah, with Builders as well, it's got the same sort of level structure, but in Builders, you go from one level to the next. In Poptopia, it's all connected in a very seamless way. So with Builders, it's like, I've done this area, that's completed now. In Poptopia, though, I'd go back to previous areas and just build them back up again, just because I liked being in those areas. I like the music. I like the different lighting effects in each one. Like every single area has its own memories and identity that you've put there. So they become less of just like, that's a tick box, I've done that. It's another area for you to just endlessly come back to and rebuild and try and do whatever you can there.
Yeah, some of my experiences with Poptopia, my strongest memories with that is just being on the beach and just kind of exploring and filling it out as I wanted to. I wasn't, you're like gently guided in this game. Like you're not like told specifically do this, do that. There are things to do that you are required to do to finish the game. But for the most part, you're pretty much are just hands off. You can do whatever you'd like to. So most of my experience of the beach was just, there was something that Professor Tangrowth wanted me to do, but I kind of wandered off and started to mess around and discover like what was what, like discovering electrical poles, putting those together. And then like the game knows too, because if you complete a task, like they want you to put all those electrical poles back to have a system going again for electricity. They'll be like, "Oh, you already did that for me. Thank you." And like they know that there's a lot of people out there who are just going to explore on their own, and they accounted for that. So that's true of every area, and each area has its own identity too. Each of them have like different starter Pokemon to kind of help introduce you in a certain way, and it's also it helps you start to care for Pokemon that you probably never would think twice about, like in an actual game. Just so many that I kind of resonate with now that is because they shared a certain experience that I had with them during that whole journey. And yeah, it's just a cool way. Well, just what an interesting way to incorporate the Pokemon IP with something as imaginative as the Dragon Quest Builders format.
Yeah, it's up there with like maybe only Mystery Dungeon in giving Pokemon a personality. Like every single interaction, like there's lots of really great writing in there. But it's also like emotionally quite a hard-hitting game if you dig into it. Because on the surface, it's just kind of like a laid-back building game. It's fun. But then you dig into all those like those logs left behind, and you explore this post-apocalyptic world with quite a deep story if you go further, which is quite rewarding. It's a nice juxtaposition between like, the calm gameplay and the quite solemn story of the world. And I thought that was one of the coolest forms of storytelling Pokemon's ever done.
And the whole the lore telling, like, well, not actually telling, like just the environmental storytelling was crazy.
Yeah.
Like when I realized without even the game telling you that the only reason Pokemon battles even happen are because of the humans. Now that there are none there that we know of, there's no battles anymore. There's no need for Pokemon battles. We can all just kind of get along and be friends.
Legendary Pokemon just appear, and it's no big deal. They're just kind of friends.
Yeah, just hang out.
It's like, hey, what's up? Oh, the people are gone. Weird. And then they're like, anyway. It did make me there was a bit of a melancholic tone though to the idea that people were gone. Like it Tangrowth really wanted to know what happened to people. A lot of Pokemon seem to want to know what happened to all the people. And as you read the lore, you start to discover that maybe it's kind of sort of our fault, which is a whole other thing that kind of ties into reality. And I felt like it was just it was such an interesting thing because I would expect a lot of brands to avoid messaging like this in a game. Pokemon is traditionally a very like risk averse type of brand, which makes sense. It's one of the biggest brands on Earth, if not the biggest. And so kind of having an underlying message about, people kind of wrecking their environment and having to leave is a very interesting thing to do. But it went over surprisingly in the year of our Lord 2026 without issue. Like the usual people who scream about things didn't scream about this. And I was happy about that. I was able to sit back and just enjoy this game for what it is. And I find myself, unlike many games that I've played this year, I find myself wanting to go back and check in on this one quite a bit. And then when I do, I invariably spend like hours just kind of tinkering on little projects around the regions that I want to do. Like you said, John, I kind of just like being in these places and hanging out with my Pokemon friends and talking to them, and like Daniel, like you said, when I figured out I could run electricity things and get lights on in houses and do all that, it kind of changed the whole game for me. The biggest thing for me though that changed was the moment the light bulb clicked on in my head that I could borrow Pokemon from one region and bring them somewhere I needed them to help me with stuff. It took me entirely too long to figure that out.
It does feel like slave labor sometimes. It's like, come on, Charmander, wake up. You've got to make me some clay. But you still like, you do form this like these little relationships with them all. Like this is the guy who does this. This is the guy who does this. I guess the biggest shortcoming maybe is that only 20 Pokemon can be spawned at a time. And so you go around being like, okay, where did this one live again? And so you put, the honey in their house to get them back. I wish they just pushed that limit a bit further. But that being said, everything it achieves is just so delightful. And it did something quite heavy as well in giving the Switch 2, I think, that burst of personality. Because prior to Poptopia, it was very much a spin-off heavy system. Like that's not necessarily a bad thing. Those games are still good. But it was like, every game didn't seem like the big one. And on paper, this didn't seem like the big one either. This one's also a spin-off. But it's a spin-off that eclipses the emotions that the main series has given you for quite a long time now. Because Pokemon, there have been good Pokemon games, but I think it's been a while since there's really been, one that's just mixed things up and is just a unanimous success in terms of quality. And this is it.
Yeah, it feels almost like Pokemon's Mario Wonder moment, where they just kind of defy your expectations of the brand and of the franchise to do something that you wouldn't think that they would be willing to do. They take a big swing and a big risk with this, and it absolutely pays off. Poptopia is probably even now, at least in my top 3 favorite Switch 2 games.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. So that's our picks for Game of the Year right now. But obviously, we're only halfway through, and I do want to give a quick shout out, just a brief mention, like an honorable mention to, surprisingly, Tomodachi Life.
Yes.
I have had loads of fun with. I'm still playing it even now. Like I play Tomodachi Life probably at least once a day for a few minutes. My kids still play it obsessively for hours on end, and I never thought that I would be like, I have like David Tennant's doctor dating Naruto on my island. Like there's so many weird things that I do in this game. And Naruto and my dad are best friends. But it's such a silly, wacky, like unwinding kind of game for me now. I took it very seriously at first. Like I made myself, I made my friends, I made people I knew in real life, and now I'm like, nah, just screw it. Like Goku's here. And so I have so much fun just kind of playing this deeply unserious game. And I'll probably still be playing it like at the end of the year, just kind of, popping in and messing around with stuff. So amazing that Tomodachi Life kind of came out and is just quietly a game that I know loads of people are playing all the time right now.
It's a really nice family game too. Like you go online and you see the most atrocious things in the world, but when you're playing with kids and like you're just making each other and like you say like, oh, how should we guide everybody now? Like it's a really fun like family cooperative game that you can just kind of play together.
Yeah, agreed 100%. Like I play it with my whole family. Like my girls both play it, my wife plays it, I play it, and we all just kind of have these radically different family dynamics that happen on our island. Like my oldest, she is the exact example of like a toxic Tomodachi Life player who posts the most gut-wrenching, horrible things. Like her people mostly drink blood. Like she has a bunch of like, she's a skilled artist. So she has a bunch of highly customized Miis that are horrendously ugly people. Like it's just, and she does it on purpose, but yeah, it's very interesting, whereas my youngest, everything's very by the book, very wholesome. She's like, look, Nana's visiting me. I'm like, that's a nice palate cleanser after seeing what your sister has done. So yeah, it's just an interesting way. It's a game that I think lets you express yourself in a way that most games never do.
Yeah. But the boundaries there are minimal in the best way.
Yeah, although they did last night, as of the recording of this episode, Nintendo put some guardrails on that you can no longer share characters if they have like offensive names. which I didn't even think to name my characters offensive stuff, but
I'm sure we can get around that.
That takes some courage, though, because you can only share characters in person. So you have to make eye contact with someone as you send them something deeply offensive, which I feel like should have been guardrails enough on their own.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about the future. So far, we've been talking about games that are out that we've all enjoyed. Shout out again to Star Fox. But the back half of the year, John, as you implied, is heavy with deeply interesting games, stuff that very well may dethrone our current picks. So I'm going to start with you, and I think I know what your answer is going to be here. But what are you most anticipating in the second half of 2026?
Should I throw you off, or should I go with what you want me to say?
Oh my goodness.
Let's see. So the thing you're implying is probably it, yeah. But instead, though, I'm going to go with another game. So there's a smaller franchise that's been around for years. It's kind of been missing for a while, though. And when you think back to the GBA, the DS, the Wii, there's just one quirky little cool franchise that always stands out. Rhythm Heaven, man. Rhythm Heaven's out next month. Rhythm Heaven Groove.
Ooh-wee.
That demo was really hot. It's not that different to what Rhythm Heaven's been in the past. And I think after such a lull, it's kind of nice to return to that. You just get these delightful mini games, brilliant art style, just so quirky and nice, replayable. It just takes you back to how good the DS and Wii games were. And we've had Megamix in the mix since then, but a solely original game. Like the Wii really was the last one. And yeah, I cannot wait for this to return. Obviously not the biggest game of the year, but in terms of like what may like withstand as a little classic, a little cult classic all these years from now, I think this is going to have a lot of power.
That's an interesting take. I did not expect that. You did surprise me. I tried the demo and it hasn't clicked for me yet, but also my house is probably the least conducive place to playing a rhythm game most of the time. Like my game room has 2 TVs in it, and I'm usually struggling to hear exactly what I'm playing. I've tried playing it in bed, and I didn't love playing it in handheld mode. So I'm trying to find the right way to play it. I think I just need to suck it up, put headphones on, and really give it a proper shot that way.
Did you play like Rhythm Heaven Fever and the
No,
DS
this is my very first Rhythm Heaven.
Okay. I think those who have played it before, I think it's just, you know what you're getting. But yeah, maybe there's a moment for it to click in there.
That makes sense. My only other touch point was at an arcade bar once. There was a Rhythm Heaven arcade cabinet that I played.
Oh, rad.
And it didn't work. Oh, you're a cat now.
I'm a cat now.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, especially because everyone I know that has played a Rhythm Heaven game is over the moon excited about this. And so I want to be part of that excitement, but it's just not something that I have enough experience with to be super hyped yet. But eventually I'm going to sit down and give the demo a proper playthrough with headphones, because I like rhythm games. It's not a genre that I dislike, so I feel like there should be something for me there.
Yeah, I remember playing Rhythm Heaven on the 3DS. That was like my first introduction to it, because I hadn't played it anywhere else. And it's so charming. I understand why everybody is so hyped for this one. I'm curious to play this one as well, play the demo, and hopefully enjoy this one as well, because I mean, there's just so much love and hype around it. It's like the people who are really into Tomodachi Life. Like, this is like their game that they've been waiting for so long. And it might not be the biggest game of the year, but those people who are into it, they're very passionate about it. And it's something just a little different, a little palate cleanser to the genres we usually see throughout the year. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's a special one.
Yeah, I think that I'll be curious to see how that pans out. And John, we'll have to have a discussion here on the Weekend Nintendo when the game comes out, because I had no idea you were that excited.
Man, yeah, it's one of those games that just, it sticks with you forever. So many Rhythm Heaven Fever games are just ingrained into my mind.
I gotta say, your voice coming out of a pink cat is,
Oh,
is
I
somehow
think this
harder
is-
than to follow
This
than
is
you are.
better, especially if I'm like moving my eyes at the same time like this.
You look incredibly shifty when you do that.
Like you're just plotting something constantly.
I'm plotting to make everybody have rhythm heaven. It'll be a rhythm hell.
All right, so Daniel, that segue was a strong one. I have a feeling I also know what you're going to choose, but hit me with it. What is your most
Defy him.
anticipated
Defy his
game?
expectations, Daniel. Say Call of Duty.
Yeah,
Call of Duty.
I'm anticipating September 17th this year because that is the release date for Trails in the Sky second chapter. And I got into the series last year with the first chapter as well. I'd never played a Trails game before. There's so many out there, and I'm scared to get into the franchise because there is so many. But the fan base is like so strongly. They're just so attached to it. Like they have these characters that you see throughout the entire franchise of like over a dozen games or so. And it all started here with a very well done remake. The remake is like completely revitalized from what we originally saw in the like the PS1 version. And a lot of the voice actors come back to reprise their roles, like people that you haven't seen in voice acting in quite a while in some other titles. And no, I'm really excited for a second chapter because second chapter I hear from a lot of people is like their favorite amongst the original trilogy. And so you end off the first game with the cliffhanger and like a little teaser of the next game. They very well know that they're going to be redoing this whole franchise, or at least this trilogy of Trails in the Sky. And so yeah, I'm really excited to see what becomes of that. And I also am scared because September 17th is also the release date for Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, and I don't know what I'm going to do, you guys. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself that day.
I was waiting. I initially thought that you were going to go Ocarina of Time, which is an easy choice, I think, for all three of us.
No, I say that for you because I know that's what you're going to pick.
It wasn't. It wasn't actually, but it is in a weird way. I'll explain my thinking here. But I realized then that there was Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, another game that I'm also incredibly excited for. It follows on in some way from Three Houses, and Three Houses is incredible. So I have to see more of this. But I think I'm just it speaks to how many amazing games are on the horizon in the next 6 months.
Exactly. This is what I meant by saying that the back half of the year is competitive because we've not mentioned the biggest one yet, and there's so many other games you can talk about as well there.
So I'm gonna segue real quick because I feel like there's so much more to talk about. But obviously, Ocarina of Time is one that I think all three of us are incredibly excited for. And I am anticipating it highly. And there is a very, very solid chance that it ends up as my game of the year because it is quite literally my favorite game. And it's a remake of my favorite game. And we're talking about our favorite potential games in a remake of one of our favorite games. And if it's as faithful as Star Fox has proven to be, if it makes similar improvements and hits similar beats to the Star Fox game we're all having this conversation inside of, then there's a very strong chance that Ocarina ends up being my game of the year. However, there's no denying the elephant in the room, the behemoth on the horizon that is Grand Theft Auto 6.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to almost certainly be the industry game of the year. I don't even know how it doesn't do that.
There's nothing else. There's no competition. Nothing else is gonna come close. I know you were fishing for me to say it earlier before I said Rhythm Heaven, and like legitimately, GTA probably is it. Yeah, like this is a Goliath. You know, there was a time where like Grand Theft Auto games came out almost annually, and we've now had a 13-year lull of just GTA Online, and that's 2 generations of no Grand Theft Auto. And I know there's some circles, especially maybe in the Nintendo community, who just don't really latch onto GTA, but in the broader sphere, there really is nothing else bigger than this. The scope of what they're making here and the anticipation of what comes with that is just unprecedented. And we haven't even really seen the game. Like, we've only seen cutscenes so far, really. There's so many unknowns, and I kind of hope it mostly stays that way. I want the unknowns. I want to be experiencing a lot of this firsthand for the first time, because every Grand Theft Auto is, it's a shift for the industry. When GTA 3 came along, that was a shift for open worlds. San Andreas was so full of how you fill that open world. GTA 4 made it feel lived in. GTA 5 made it feel just wide and chaotic. And then what is 6 going to do with such a shift in years, in decade? It's really exciting to think about the prospect of that. And for the most part, it seems we're going to be experiencing most of that without a whole lot of blowout, which is really nice.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is like Ocarina of Time, like Fortune's Weave. This is a game I don't need to see more of to know whether or not I want to pick it up. And the answer to that is a resounding yes. Of course I want to pick up GTA 6. And it's weird because it's strange for me to kind of have this kind of dueling sensibilities about these two games. Like, Ocarina of Time is a game that I could see dethroning GTA 6 in my personal view for Game of the Year, because it's something that is very near and dear to my heart. However, GTA 6 is also, like you said, a kind of an event for the medium itself. It is something that transcends our small bubble as enthusiasts in video games. It's something that brings a lot of people either back to or into the medium for the first time. There's a whole generation of teenagers that were born that have not had a GTA release in their lifetime.
GTA 5 is all they know.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing to think about. My daughter was an infant when GTA 5 came out.
Yeah.
And she is now almost in high school. So that is just a terrifying proposition to think about. There's going to be a lot of people who literally get their first game console to play this game. And to me, that is a huge mark of what should make a Game of the Year contender. I feel like Animal Crossing New Horizons was very unfairly snubbed for Game of the Year in 2020 when it introduced loads and loads of players, not just to the Nintendo Switch, but to video games as a whole. I knew so many people that bought a Switch just to play Animal Crossing that year. And I get that, there were a lot of external forces that maybe pushed people towards that game, but it doesn't change the fact that it expanded the player base and really brought people into our chosen hobby. And I wish more games did that. And GTA will certainly be one of those games.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about other things coming this year, like remakes of some juggernauts, like Ocarina of Time, like Trails in the Sky. They are juggernauts of their genres. Ocarina far more so in broader scope, but they are also games we've played before. And GTA 6 is almost certainly going to cement itself as a classic on those lines in terms of just how great it is as a game. Because there hasn't been a bad Grand Theft Auto game. And with all these years of crafting, you just know they're going to make it land. Ocarina is also kind of an unknown, though, because we don't know if it's going to be one-to-one. We don't know if it's going to shift and reformat Ocarina of Time, because if it does, then that's no longer just taking the old game and making it fresh again. That becomes a new game. So there is maybe there's an expectation that Ocarina can basically feel like a new Zelda and really compete for that long-lasting impact of being a new game rather than just a regular remake. We'll see.
It's a really tough line for me because we're all hot on the heels of Star Fox, and I have to say, next to Pragmata, I feel that Star Fox it might be the most enjoyable game I've played this year so far. There's something about coming back to a game that is really comfortable, really that's just updated in all the right ways. And I feel like that's true of Star Fox. It's a shame that I think in any other year I would be talking about Star Fox as a Game of the Year contender, but we have so many new, original, interesting games this year that realistically, I know this is going to be, I'm fairly confident Pragmata is going to be dethroned by something. And so I just can't, we have almost an embarrassment of riches this year. There's so many amazing games that are out now and so many amazing games on the horizon that it is truly a difficult question to answer. Like, where will I be at December 30th, December 31st? What will I be sitting back and saying, man, that was the best game of this year? This is like 2017 levels of goodness that we're getting.
Totally. There's a lot of like smaller games that are still just as likely to be mega hits. Like Dench Attack, for one, I think is going to be extraordinary in its gameplay, and that's out in like a month. It just like takes you back to like that sort of Jet Set Radio time. There's like hints of like rhythm game in there as well. Really interested in that 2D HD 2D Final Fantasy game coming up, Resonance. Really excited about that. Man, there's a lot coming up.
Yeah, sorry, Daniel. I think you were going to say something.
What was it? There were so many games of those, so many of those titles that are releasing September and October because of Grand Theft Auto in November.
Yeah.
Which kind of it's I've never seen anything like this in the industry where there are so many games packed in like a 2-month period that we're now starting to see people shifting their release dates, pushing them up instead of back, just so that they have room to breathe and don't clutter over each other all at the same time.
Yeah, but unfortunately it's become the opposite where they are just cluttered now. Another September game is Orbitals. I think Orbitals is going to hit really strongly, but it's just being flooded by everything else in September now, isn't it?
Yep. Orbitals is looking fantastic. Switch 2 exclusive, by the way. One of those co-op games that I just want to see and play really, really badly. But yeah, it does feel like it maybe is destined to get a bit lost. So go pre-order that if you haven't, because you might forget. Like, I feel like September is so packed now that it would be easy to let that slip your mind. We've ended up in a situation where there's so many games. There's just so many. I don't know how we're gonna make it through September. To say nothing of whenever Ocarina releases, to say nothing of November when GTA 6 drops. I just feel like we have so many incredible options on the horizon for games to play. Like I also don't know how I'm going to find time for Fire Emblem, which is a game I desperately want to play. It's just there's going to be so many different things for us to look at to get through. But that's I don't want to just throw shade on the first half of the year. Like the first half of 2026 has been utterly fantastic. We've spent, half hour talking about how many games we played that we loved in these first 6 months. And the second 6 months seem like they're just going to be even better. So really, no matter where you land on this, I think we all kind of win.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything else that you're really looking forward to? Just shout out the name of a game that you want to play.
What are you thinking, Daniel?
I want to see how the only game I know thus far that's going to compete against Grand Theft Auto is Metaphor Port.
Metaphor Port.
The only one
Sure.
brave enough to challenge Grand Theft Auto is Metaphor. And I have faith in it.
Yeah.
You know what?
He's right. Metaphor's going to sell 60 million and GTA just a merely 5.
There you go.
Yeah, because I honestly, I don't care much for Grand Theft Auto, so.
Yeah, and no shade to those who don't. I'm super excited for it, but if it's not your cup of tea, like, there's no shortage of other games to play, right?
Exactly.
And I'm sure a lot of those September releases are going to keep a lot of us happy all the way through to the end of the year or whenever Ocarina of Time comes out. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us. 2026 is an absolute banger year for video games. It's incredibly packed. We're going to hop off into, I was going to say our wings, but I think canonically, I'm the only R-Wing pilot in this panel right now. We're going to just go back to space, however we get there. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you would like to get the audio version of the Week in Nintendo, this is the only time Fox McCloud is going to pitch this. If you would like to get the audio version of the Week in Nintendo a day early, you can do so by heading over to our Patreon over at patreon.com/gvgaming. Details are there, how to find out. We've got a ton of other stuff. We're doing exclusive videos over there now too, if you want to see those. John and I recently talked about what the hell is going on at Xbox. So if you'd like to see those, patreon.com/gvgaming is where you can find out how. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening, and we hope y'all have a good one. Until next time, bye.
Bye-bye.
Till we meet again.